Prominent Atlanta attorney Tex McIver is accused of intentionally killing his wife Diane in September of 2016 while they were riding home through Midtown Atlanta. McIver claims he fell asleep in the back seat when a loaded gun in his lap accidentally went off, striking his wife, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. Danny Jo Carter, Diane McIver's best friend of 40 years, was driving the SUV that night. She drove the couple to Emory Hospital, where Diane died the next day. In December, about 3 months after the shooting, Fulton County issues a warrant for McIver's arrest. The charges include felony involuntary manslaughter. McIver turned himself in later that night, but was free on bond just 2 days later. Things change on April 14, 2017, when police find a gun in McIver's Buckhead apartment, a violation of the terms of his bond. Later that month, McIver is indicted on new upgraded charges, including malice murder, felony murder, and witness tampering involving Danny Jo Carter, the woman who was driving the SUV. Judge Robert McBurney is presiding over the case in Fulton County Superior Court. He denied bond to McIver once the murder charge was announced, but a few months later, in October of 2017, set bond at $750,000.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 4 of our coverage of the Tex McIver Murder Trial. I'm Vinny Politan. Great to have you aboard. And tonight we have with us our legal dream team tonight, Mo Ivory. Great to see Mo. And Lawrence Zimmerman. And as we do every night, we're going to start off with some of the headlines from today, get a quick take from our guests, and then we'll take a deeper dive into everything that's happening in the courtroom. Again, Tex McIver accused of murdering his wife Diane, shooting and killing her in their SUV on the way back from some event at a country club. All right, first question, guys. Here we go. There was a juror today who says, she believes he's guilty. That juror made it to the next round. Any chance that she survives?
She may. I mean, I feel like that was an unbelievable thing that she got through, and so we'll see what happens in the next round. I mean, I would be fighting to get her out if I was working for the defense. I'd be fighting to keep her in if I worked for the prosecution, so we're going to see what happens. But I was surprised that she did move to the next round.
Does she survive?
Well, at the end of the day, if she's not removed for cause, the defense is going to strike her, so probably she won't survive.
All right, one of the jurors today mentioned that Tex McIver sold his wife's things. Let me say that again, folks. Tex McIver, one of the jurors today mentioned that Tex McIver sold his wife's things shortly after she died. How bad of a fact is that?
Well, that is a fact that he sold her stuff after she died. But if it's for the sense of thinking that it was because of financial gain, and that was, again, one of the reasons why this murder took place in the first place, that's really bad. But, you know, we'll have to see.
How bad is it?
It's only bad if he sold it to get money to go to the Bahamas, but it's not bad if he sold it because they needed some money or to pay certain things. So it just depends on what the reason was. I don't think it's bad at all. Reason.
It could go to motive, though.
Yeah. Now, one of the theories that has been playing out there, and one of the themes we've seen from jurors throughout here, is a lot of them aren't believing this accident theory. So is there any chance that the defense changes their theory?
No, because there's
So
no other
what?
defense.
Yeah.
And so what? The jury doesn't believe it during jury selection. They're not really supposed to hear any evidence anyway. So it's just out there. They planted the seed, and once they hear the evidence, then they'll believe it.
Yeah, and to what? What, you know, we were talking earlier, to what would it be changed to at this, juncture? I don't know that there could be anything believable that could be put forth that would have a dramatic change to what is going to be presented in this
The driver
case.
did it.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to do that.
Right.
All right. Today, one of the jurors, potential jurors, got very emotional. So how often do lawyers try to bring emotion into a case versus the facts?
Always bring emotion to the courtroom. The courtroom's a cold place. You have to show the jury you love your client, and always emotional. Always bringing emotion in. I'm not saying you're playing the emotions, but you're always showing the emotion.
everybody's a human being in the courtroom, and especially the jurors, right? And we know that people make decisions. We have heard from jurors after a case is over about why they decided the way they do, and many times it's based on how they were feeling. What they were feeling about a way a person gave the story, the way they felt that the prosecution was, the way they felt. So feeling is hugely important.
All right, let's do this, because I know we've monitored jury selection today and what happened in the courtroom. So I want to get a quick take for you off the top here. Who had a better day, the prosecution or defense, Mo?
Prosecution. I believe the prosecution had a better day because many jurors that were moved on to the second round said things that could be very helpful to them in the case.
Lawrence, who had a better day, prosecution or defense?
Obviously the defense, because the defendant's always presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and we haven't heard the case yet.
I am going to say prosecution, because all these people that are doubting the accident theory, and a lot of them are moving on to the next round, that's a problem. All right, let's take a deeper dive. Folks, what you can do, you have any questions or comments, put them up here on the board, and I will let our dream team know what you're thinking and get some answers from you. Let's see. First one I got here. Okay, Vicky, this is may be a big part of the case. Now, one of the original stories that was put out there by the defense, not necessarily the defendant himself, but by the defense, was that he wanted the gun while he's driving in the SUV because there was a Black Lives Matter event and he was scared. So Vicky writes, he was nervous because they're going near a Black Lives Matter rally, so he had the gun out. But he was asleep, LOL. And that's the problem, right? Here, I'll take these from you guys.
Sure.
How does that play out? Because we've heard a couple different stories from the defense. Where do you think they end up going? Do they say and give a reason why he took the gun out?
Well, I think we spoke about this the other night. He took a gun out because, for whatever reason, he thought he was in an area where...
Well, you say whatever reason. Do they have to say what the reason is?
He thought he was in an area where he may have needed a gun. The issue is that he didn't kill his wife on purpose. They either hit a bump, something happened, or the gun went off. There's a reason he took it out. It has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter or whoever isn't the reason he killed his wife. They're saying it's an accident. The reason he got the gun out is because he was nervous about something going on outside the car.
Does it matter, you think, Mo, in front of the jury, why he got the gun in the first place?
I think it matters why he got the gun in the first place. And I think when they bring the... it's hard to believe this whole story. The part about he falls asleep, the gun goes off, he takes it out because he's in this bad neighborhood, and then in the same neighborhood there's a hospital that could save his wife. He doesn't go to it. I think it all matters. And I think it's going to be an important factor when they start to hear the evidence.
Go ahead.
This hospital thing, by the way, the problem we have in all these cases, we are trying to slow things down like it's almost instant replay in football. Life doesn't move that slow. Things happen in an instant. So they missed the hospital. You're not thinking when a gun goes off and someone is bleeding, oh my God, the closest hospital's here. Just go where you know. And that's where they raced off to Emory, which is only 3 miles away.
Yeah, you're certainly thinking call for help, though.
Right.
You're certainly thinking, let me, call for help, let me do, and some of the things that he did just don't make sense for even in the real sequence of life and the way things happen, just don't make sense.
Maybe. We don't know unless you're in those shoes.
Now can they argue at the same time that he was in fear for his life, which is why he got the gun, and he was asleep? How do you fall asleep
That's
if you're
exactly
in fear
right.
for your life?
That's exactly
and that's
right.
what the point that Vicky's making here. Can they actually say that at trial?
Well, he could have woken up, the way I understand it, he woke up there in an area he thought was a bad neighborhood, got his gun, and I think there's some statements that they hit a bump and the gun went off.
So he woke up and he got
the gun.
Yes. He woke up, he took the gun, he got the gun, I'm not a gun enthusiast, so he got the gun ready to go, took the safety off or whatever, and then he hit the bump and it just dropped right at the point where he would shoot his wife right through the back seat. I want to see that reenactment. I want to see those time frames.
How did he know that one shot through the back seat would have killed his wife? I mean, just one shot, nothing more. I mean, did he study up on the expedition to see whether a bullet would go through the... I mean, that's the other interesting issue here.
Well, I don't know but devil's advocate, if it's a murder, right? Yeah. You can't fire twice because you're not going to accidentally shoot twice, right? So the only way you can argue that you accidentally killed her, if you actually murdered her, is to do it once.
Why not a clear shot to the head then? Why not just boom and right there? It's still an accident. I had the gun, boom, I hit her in the head. Done. He would have no questions asked.
Would you argue that to a jury? from the defense perspective? Would you say, hey, if he was going to kill her,
He would have just done it through the shot to the head.
I don't know if I'd say that because you don't. I mean, because then you sound really callous and cold. I mean, there's obviously a way to say it. I don't know all the facts of the case. I mean, yeah, in some way you would talk about that.
Can you bring that up?
Sure.
That this would be a stupid way to murder your wife.
Of course, it'd be stupid to have a witness in the car to the murder.
Yeah, it would again, without having all of the facts of the case, it would seem hard to believe that going over a speed bump, that a gun would accidentally go off pointed right at the back of a person that's right in front of you. I mean, if you've ever had a cup of water and you've been in the car and a bump and it goes like, or it's just, we'll see. We need more facts.
But here's the key here. We don't know the facts yet.
That's exactly right.
Everything I've heard has been through 11 alive.
Yes.
Second and third hand hearsay.
Yes.
Twice removed.
Right.
All right. Hey, Kathy has a question here. If he knew it was a bad area, why would he go there and sleep in his vehicle? I think the story behind that is that he was not driving, and their friend who was driving made a wrong turn. And that's why they ended up in an area where
It's Edgewood.
I mean, I'm not judging the area at all, but an area that he wasn't familiar with or he perceived as dangerous. The reason they were there to begin with was because of a wrong turn that was made. That's at least what they put out in their story.
Right.
Now let's back it up 1 second. Do you think that they have to back away from the he was asleep and accidentally shot her to it has to just be the bump?
Well, I don't think the story was he was. I think the story was he was asleep, woke up when they got off in the Edgewood area. Looked around, thought he was maybe in what he would deem a bad area, and then asked to give him the gun, and then they hit a bump.
And then they hit a bump.
Right. I don't think he was sleeping and the gun went off while he was asleep.
Okay.
That would be a silly defense. Don't go with that.
Wendy, how did his finger end up on the trigger? If he fell asleep, his hand would have fallen off the gun. Gun would have fallen to the side. So, and Wendy, I guess this gets right back to what you're saying.
So when was he sleeping?
Yeah,
it's a crucial point that has to be.
You're right, because I think there may have been another story out there where he fell asleep with the gun in his lap. So that's why I have to hear the evidence. I don't know.
And when exactly was the gun given? Sure,
right. You have two stories, but I don't think either story can be used against him in court necessarily. I think that's going to be an issue here because these stories were given to the public and the media through someone else, not directly from Tex McIver.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Who told him to come up with a story about Black Lives Matter? I mean, that's part of the case, right?
That's going to be part of the case.
Bill Crane is part of the indictment.
Right.
He's not indicted. The indictment is that Tex tried to influence him to change his story to retract the Black Lives Matter.
So then that person may have to testify about what Tex told him.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So that's can you explain to folks how that comes in? Because people may not know. You know what hearsay is, right? It's a statement made outside of a courtroom, brought into evidence to prove the matter asserted. That's the legal definition. What it means is you say something not in court, and someone else says what they heard you say. Right? That would be hearsay.
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody has
But why are we allowed to hear what Tex McIver said somewhere else, but not someone else? Why can someone else tell us what Tex McIver said before?
Well, for example, if Bill Crane,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
For example, Bill Crane comes in and testifies that Tex told me this. That's personal knowledge. He can't testify as to what Vinnie Politan may have heard from Tex. That would be hearsay. If Tex told you, then told Bill.
Right.
It's direct knowledge.
But if I tell you something, you can't testify to it, but we can because it's Tex.
Maybe.
Because I can't be cross-examined. Isn't it because he's the defendant? It's a statement against interest?
Yes.
Okay.
It just depends.
There's a lot of exceptions.
Hearsay. One of them is things that defendants say can be used against.
I'm so confused on Facebook Live.
Yeah,
that's okay. All right.
Well, there already was a motion to include certain hearsay, and the judge is going to rule on that.
All right. I'm trying to see.
I think the judge ruled on. Did he say that?
But I believe what Diane McIver said will come is called dying declaration, because when you're on death's doorstep, supposedly you only tell the truth. They want to make sure it's truthful. And you won't be able to be cross-examined. They say because if you're dying, you're going to tell the truth.
Right.
Who lies are going to die.
And she did not want to see her husband when asked. She was dying. She didn't want to see her husband.
And you don't actually have to die. You have to think you're dying.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Wendy with a great point here, because we had that one juror, right, who said, hey, I think he's guilty and has moved on to the next round. How can a juror stay on saying he is guilty without hearing the case? And in this case, the witness, the potential juror did say, hey, listen, I can still be fair. Yeah. And ultimately, that's the test, right? Like, you can hear anything about the case, you can have an opinion, but the ultimate question is, can you put all that aside and be fair and impartial? Do you believe jurors when they say that?
So what happens is a juror will say that they think someone's guilty, and the defense will move to have them removed for cause. And then the prosecution will get up and say, but if you hear all the evidence, will you promise to be fair and impartial once you hear the evidence? And they'll browbeat the juror to do that, and then so will the judge. And actually, the law in Georgia is if the jurors really said, I cannot be fair, and the judge and the prosecutor start browbeating them, that case could actually be reversed for that. So
if they don't believe they can be fair, but if they say, listen, I think he's guilty now, but I can put that aside and be fair, that juror's okay.
Well, that's the magic question
Yeah.
that the judge can keep asking them, and I've watched the judge ask, I hear what you're saying. But once you hear the evidence, do you think then, put that opinion aside, once you hear the evidence, could you base your decision on the evidence you hear in this courtroom, nowhere else, will you be fair and impartial? And they'll say yes. Because the judge has used the majesty of the bench and has pushed it on them, and now they say, of course I can be fair.
I noticed some skepticism from you, Lawrence. A little skepticism. So you don't like those jurors? You get rid of those jurors generally?
No, it just depends. I mean, I'm not.
You got to read them.
It just depends on what the answers are and why they're saying what they're saying. I mean, if I've had plenty of jurors who start out that way, but then we talk more about it, and then
you realize,
right?
yeah.
And they're just being honest. They don't know enough.
You know, one of the great tactics, and there's nothing illegal about it, but a great tactic I've seen lawyers use is they have jurors make promises to them during voir dire, during the jury selection prompts. Do you promise that you can do this? Do you promise that you can do that? And then they remind them during their closing argument, you promised you would be fair, and you promised that you would, you know, if this was there, if this piece of evidence was there, and this piece of evidence, you would be fair and open. And they remind them at the end. Do you find that jurors, generally from your experience in your cases, in your trials, give a fair shake and take their job very seriously?
Yes. I think most jurors take their job very seriously, and I do think that when a juror says, do you think that you can be fair, I think they believe that they can be fair, and then there's the trial. And so, you know, obviously things come up, and as the case is being heard, people have different feelings, and they move along in the process, and that's why it comes back up again when jury instructions are coming. You know, remember you said and promised that you would be fair, because you're now reading people through all the time frame that the case is going on. You're wondering, oh, I'm not liking the way that person is reacting. I'm looking at this person, I'm seeing a little bit of a change than what I thought, depending on what you thought about the person. So yeah, I think that people can be very convincing and then do something completely opposite.
And you're finding jurors, really, that have shared experiences, right? It's your little community. It's your little tribe. And you want everybody to have, it's like maybe your neighborhood. Everyone has differences of opinion, but they all have common things that we all share, and that they can understand your client here may have the same life story or some connection. They sort of understand where that person's coming from. So the Texas case, I mean, obviously, he's an older white gentleman who likes firearms, right? But
his name is Tex.
Right, we talked about it the other night. Right, his name is Tex. But I mean, they're going to find people that could connect with him a little bit and understand where he's coming from.
What I found, because I've interviewed a lot of jurors working at Court TV, we would try to find the jurors afterwards and talk to them. And I would say probably 19 times out of 20, very impressed with jurors and how seriously they took their job. There was this one case where it seemed like a very obvious case. There was DNA and everything else. And the jury deliberated from Monday all the way to Friday. We're like, what are they thinking? What are they thinking? And what they came back and said was, we didn't take a vote initially. We wanted to go through all the evidence, and then we took our first vote, and everyone agreed that he was guilty. But they actually took a whole week of their own time to go through the case to make sure that they're all kind of understanding the evidence. And I was like, wow, I'm really impressed. Like, who wants to stay on jury duty, number one? But number two, like, if I was a juror, the first thing I'd do, all right, who wants to vote, right? But they wouldn't even vote until they went through the evidence together.
I was just listening, I was listening to a seminar on CD in my car while I was driving. Some lawyers talking about trying cases. And he says when he tries cases, he asks the jury to do not do a first vote. Just go through all the evidence, all of it, and don't take a vote till the end. He doesn't want anybody to like just raise a hand and then affect everyone else's decision, because 6 people are saying guilty, and that may affect the other 6.
Yeah, if I was the foreman, it would be like, all right, let's vote. Who stands where? But I'll never.
Sorry.
Hey, by the way,
I think it
by the way,
also has
the jury selection is almost. They're almost to that next phase, and we think we're going to get a jury on Friday, which is the headline. But by the way, who had jury duty today? Anyone in this room?
You did.
I did. So I know they're close because they sent me home early. I was at that courthouse and sent home early my panel. They didn't need us, so we just went down for the morning, hung out for a little bit, and left. And that's why I'm able to be here tonight.
Did you wear a hidden camera?
No. I would have been a great juror. But I was swimming in that jury pool today. And,
Did you promise to be fair?
Yeah, well, I didn't have to. I never even
they
got to that
dismissed you
point. So
early.
I think we're real close to getting a jury, and we should start things on Monday.
Did you take the bus over from the jury parking lot and hear about the case on the bus?
No. I didn't want to do that because I want to get out there quickly, so I actually paid for the parking right across the street. Let me see if there's any more questions before we wrap things up for tonight. Here, just checking. We have folks from East Texas here tonight, which is nice.
Oh, welcome.
Wake up.
North Carolina here. All right, and Kathy's talking about someone else was the driver. Yeah, so there's 3 people involved here, and let's just finish up with that third person, the driver. Diane's best friend. Diane is the victim in this case. Diane's best friend of 40 years. How important is her testimony going to be? And is her testimony the make it or break it here? Because she didn't see anything, I don't think, because she's driving, right? But she had to hear everything that was going on.
Oh, it's crucial. I mean, if she's not one of the most important witnesses in this case, yeah, I mean, she's going to be able to help with the timeline. She's going to be able to help and talk about what was going on. She'll dispel or confirm whether this Black Lives Matter issue was really why he was passed the gun or if not. So I think she's absolutely crucial.
Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely a crucial witness. I don't know if she's a make or break witness. I mean, it sounds like she's favorable to Mr. McIver anyway. So, I mean, as long as, I mean, it's shocking to say they were having a fight in the car and he took out the gun. I mean,
right.
I think the story's going to basically be what we know, and she could add to that. I don't think she can tank the case one way or the other. She's definitely going to shed a lot of light and describe what was going on and why they did things. And I mean,
The sleeping,
yeah. I mean, yeah, she can shed light on all that stuff.
Yes.
She's definitely a key witness. I don't think she should make a break witness. I think it's just going to be basically, here's
You
what
think
happened.
if she wasn't there, you don't think she's make or break in the sense that if she wasn't there, I mean, if they didn't have her, she was the only other person there.
But she didn't see anything. She was driving. The gun went off. So that's what I mean. So,
Okay, yeah. Well,
I mean,
she did. I think it's important to know
right.
what she heard in the car.
Exactly, right. I
Yeah,
agree
those
with that.
the sleep. I want the sleeping. The facts around he was sleeping. I think that's
Did they
very
drive over a
important.
bump?
Did they drive right? Where was
right.
the
Those are
right?
important facts.
Yes.
So
Did you hear him take the safety? What was going on
Right.
with the gun?
I don't disagree. Right. She's a very important witness. I just.
Look, I just changed the lawyer's mind.
I think they could survive whatever she has to say. And
Okay.
and that's
When you
what
say
I'm
that,
saying.
you mean the defense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So again, folks, we do this every night at 7:30 during the course of this trial, from the beginning all the way to the end. Your questions and comments are always welcome. And don't forget, we do a full wrap-up with highlights and everything else each night at 11 o'clock on the late feed, which you can see streaming on 11alive.com if you're not from Atlanta. But if you're from Atlanta, just turn on the TV. All right? It's 11 Alive. So thank you, Mo Ivory, and Lawrence Zimmerman. I'm Vinny Politan. We'll see you at 11 on the late feed.